Greetings, owners of fine luxury cardboard rectangles. We are here to talk about a very unique and interesting situation going on with what's known as the Theros financial disaster, specifically in regards to EV. Now, interestingly enough, there are going to be a number of parties that consider this a disaster, but Wizards may or may not, depending on the overall outcome of the scenario. So what we're dealing with, so that we're all on the same page, is we're going to be talking about Theros booster boxes, the regular style of booster box, okay? Because the EV of these boxes has crashed into the ground at a phenomenal rate. Now, I got to admit, as the Magic historian, as a guy who's been in Magic for a long time, it's crazy to see the way things have moved in terms of financial markets. I literally remember the days before there were even magazines to tell you what the price of the cards were. But we used to use magazines that would come out every month or so, and half the people didn't even really go buy them. I didn't even go buy the magazines. But either way, it's been a very long and interesting journey to get to the point that we're at. Now, EV is a fairly common term, although, you know what, depending on who you are as part of the Magic community, you may not know what that means. So, EV is expected value. The basic idea is, how much is a booster box going to cost me, and how much money's worth of cards am I going to get out of that box? Now, this is something that's fairly unique to Magic the Gathering, and to a lesser extent, other card games, because they do mimic Magic the Gathering, but overall, this is not something you're going to find with people buying random board games like Monopoly, you know, that kind of stuff. It's not something that applies to that. Nobody goes and buys a game and thinks to themselves, like, this better be worth more money than I put into it. But that's the kind of scenario we're dealing with here. And as we'll talk about in the video, it's not limited specifically to players, and there are other interested parties that do actually need to pay more attention to EV, because if they don't, it will be very bad for their business. So the idea is, how much money can I get out of one of these boxes versus how much is it going to cost me? And for the first time in Magic's history, we've had a EV plummet to the point where within about a week of the set coming out, it is now no longer wise for any sort of store or business to open these booster boxes. And that's a first, honestly. Just the level of financial crash in terms of people who look at this. You have a situation where normally Magic cards would have like a pre-release price, and the pre-release price is the highest price. And how this price is got to is basically a bunch of guesswork. You'll have a bunch of well-known websites that, like the ones that people go to as their go-to websites, and they will say authoritatively, the price for this is this at pre-release. But they're really just guessing, right? They haven't seen the cards get released into the environment. They've only been able to just kind of feel out how excited people are about them, what kind of combos people are talking about, and also take a look at historical prices for cards that are similar. So it's a lot of guesswork that goes into these pre-release prices. So it makes sense that after the pre-release period, once you get to the release period, then the price drops as reality sinks in and supply increases. So the reality being, everybody plays with the cards, figure out what's actually going to win, what doesn't matter. So you'll have cards, most of the time cards will head downwards. You'll have a few sleeper cards that people didn't realize the power of right away, but once they have it demonstrated to them, that card will shoot up. But overall it goes, pre-release is like the highest, craziest prices. Then you move to release and you have the drop off. And then as the set has been out for a while, you reach some sort of equilibrium where it just kind of it's based on actual demand and what's going on in the meta, as opposed to random guesswork or scarcity issues that you have at the beginning. Now, interestingly enough, this season 2 is, I don't know how many pre-release seasons they've done this for, but they've changed the way they do things where now you can buy booster boxes at pre-release. It used to be at pre-release, you could only get the cards you got in your pre-release kit, your 6 booster packs plus your promo. So you're going to get maybe 7 or 8 rares tops. And those are the cards most people are chasing after. Most people aren't really too put out about trying to find the commons and uncommons, because those are easy to come by. Not a big deal, right? So you've got a very limited supply of rares normally at the pre-release, but then Wizards has changed it so you can sell boxes during pre-release. so people can get all their stuff during pre-release. And then you have a little bit of a compounding factor where Arena releases the cards even a little bit earlier, which leads to people figuring things out what are going on faster as well. So you have a situation where the pre-release prices crash faster, and then the release price would normally hold a little bit more stable. But we have another vector that comes into the mix here, and that is this little guy right here, the collector's booster, okay? Now these are the current hotness in Magic the Gathering. If you don't know what a collector's booster is, basically you've got your regular boosters that come in a box like this. You get 36 of them, and most of the cards in each pack are garbage. Well, the collector's boosters have just all foil special editions and special extended arts. There's a bunch of little bells and whistles they put on there that you can't get outside of those packs, as well as just a concentrated amount of the goodness you can get from those. So this is the second set where we've had collector's edition. This is a new thing, and this is most likely, like, in my opinion, obviously when it comes to these things, you can't always say concretely what's going on, but my opinion is that collector's edition is what is causing this sort of downward push overall on card prices. Now, this is a scenario where it actually benefits the players who are playing on the cheapest end of the spectrum. So there are people who do benefit from this. If you don't care about having the absolute like highest level, I need extended borders, I need special foil art, alternate art editions, things like that. If you don't care about any of that, then this all works in your favor because it pushes the price of regular cards down, right? People just want to be cracking collector's edition because it's essentially concentrated goodness. Wizards of the Coast has come out themselves and said that draft packs are essentially just full of garbage. Hilariously enough, in the announcement for Collector's Booster, they didn't say it directly that way, but that is paraphrasing them. They essentially said that the draft packs are mainly full of garbage, and if you want to avoid the garbage, you get the collector's packs. So we've seen the first step of the collector's pack experiment, and that was Throne of Eldraine. This was the very first time we saw collector's packs, and what they did was they naturally pushed down the prices of all regular printings of cards. There are no cards that exist only in collector's boosters in terms of, yes, they're extended art, but in terms of like actually the exact same card, you can find every card available in collector's packs, available in regular form as well at a cheaper price. So essentially it created multiple tiers of different rares. So you have like, it used to be, you'd have your regular rare and your foil rare. And then they came along with the extended border. So now you can get your extended border and your extended foil version of it, right? And then on top of that, constellation versions, alternate arts versions, they have these other showcase cards that they created that create a full different third version of the card. It's the exact same card mechanically, but it creates a third version of the card. And so you have these tiered prices on what's the most desirable. There's only so much money to go around for every set and what people are willing to spend on. So you have the people who want the biggest and the best, and that's what you're going to find in the collector's packs now at a much higher incidence. On top of that, the collector's packs tend to push a lot of goodness out into the market, just pushing the price down on all of the cards in the set. And as a player, I really, really like this effect. There is the downside, however, that it does negatively impact LGSs. For LGSs, this sort of EV crash is a genuine financial disaster. You have an LGS, you need people to keep coming in and playing, right? And the best thing to do to keep people playing is to have events that fire off, have a welcoming environment, and have cards available for your players to buy. If somebody needs to grab some cards from the event, being able to go up, look in the display case, pick out cards, all this sort of thing, that's really, really helpful. Well, what this crash in EV does is it makes it so that you would, like, picture yourself as a store owner, okay? Now, I'm just gonna make up numbers because we're here in Canada, so our pricing is a little bit different, right? So let's say, and this is just a made up example, right? Because there's a difference between American exchange rate and Canadian exchange rate. So let's say that you pay $100 as a store, you're paying to your distributor $100 to bring in one of these boxes, okay? So your cost is $100. Now, the expected value you'll get out of this box is $95. What are you gonna do at this point? Every box you open, you're losing money on. And that's only if you can sell all the cards that you get of, like, basically basically the $95 in expected value is only if you can sell all the rares that you get out of there, right? Where you've got to be able to actually monetize the contents of the box. So your return is actually going to be much lower than $95 opening a box. So what scenario are you left with? You have a scenario where stores can't afford to open boxes. Like stores aren't allowed to, basically under Wizards rules, stores aren't allowed, as far as I understand, to open any of the boxes they're sent for singles. Like at pre-release time, when Wizards sends out the boxes, people aren't allowed to crack open those boxes, put the singles out for sale, and then just get their money back right away. You're not allowed to do that. You have to wait until release. Well, if within a few days of release the prices crash this much, obviously you can't afford to be operating in that window. You know what I mean? Like, you've got to choose. Do you break Wizards rules? Like, what do you do in this scenario? If you are 100% abiding by Wizards rules, then mathematically these are going to become like a monetary death trap, where you're essentially just every box you open is you losing money. But if you don't open the boxes, then when people come in and want to buy the random cards, they want to buy, oh, I need these 2 top shelf rares, but I also need these lower level rares, and I need some uncommons and uncommons as well. So we don't have those. We don't have those. Why? Well, because cracking a box isn't worth it. And I mean, at the end of the day, if the store is paying like $100 for these boxes, they're probably selling them for like $120, $130 or more. These are all hypothetical numbers, but you've got an option between holding onto a box and hoping to make like 10, 20 bucks off it, cracking a box and being guaranteed to lose money, not being able to supply your customers who are coming in with the singles that they need. So you end up with a dangerous scenario where it just makes sense as a store owner to go, okay, I'm not actually going to open these boxes, but they're still going to want singles. So what does the next solution become? Well, there's a limited amount of these collector's boosters. Why don't we just go ahead and open these collector's boosters and basically crack them like right away, get the collector's boosters as fast as you can, open them all for singles, flip those singles as fast as possible to actually make a profit. Now, as for what's going on, sorry about my itchy nose there. I'm still a little bit under the weather and my nose is so itchy. Oh God, it's so unprofessional, but what are you gonna do? Anyhow, so the stores are put into this position where, what do? Do they crack into the collector's boosters? Do they just sit back and go, okay, I guess I'll just be the middleman? Like it's already a really bad position for stores to begin with. And then you've got a scenario now where, as well, how does Wizards view this, right? Because basically what they're doing is they keep trying to experiment with different products. And we've seen it. The Master Set was a success until it was a failure. They have gimmicks, you know, they'll run the full art lands where it's like, we'll do the Battle for Zendikar full art lands, and then we'll put them here, and then we'll put them in Amonkhet and whatever, but we'll only put them in one out of every 4 pack, or the invocations, like all the masterpieces, the mythic editions. They keep trying to come up with different ways to milk money out of people, but the ones that are parasitic towards their main bread and butter, which is what these are, right? This is the product that like sells the most when it comes to Magic the Gathering, right? Or it may have been. We may be looking at a change in history now where these are no longer the hot sellers anymore, because the reality is a lot of Magic players expect to make money off of the game. It's, again, like I said earlier in the video, it's an interesting phenomenon where people expect to be able to make money off of the game. But whatever it is, Wizards has helped to foster and engender that mentality in its customer base intentionally, because in most cases it benefits them, right? It is good for Wizards to have a greedy customer base. It works out quite well. For Wizards customers to view Magic as if it's money in the bank, that's great for the company. But when a box like this, all of a sudden it's like, well, wait, nobody wants to buy this box. They're just going to lose money. They're just, why would they buy this? So now Wizards has to weigh, like, how much money do we make per collector's box? How many collector's boxes are we selling? And how much are we losing on our draft boxes? And then they have 2 choices, right? They can either plow forwards with the collector's packs, or they can discontinue them and try and get draft boxes back to where they were. And I think, honestly, they should probably return to draft boxes because it's a safer route. The collector's route, we've seen with every attempt they've made to make these more expensive products, there's a point of break where people just, I can't put that much money in this game, and what you're giving me isn't worth it. And also, the more they do this stuff, the more it's devalued. People already saw the effect of the Throne of Eldraine collector's packs and what they did to regular rares, the regular set stuff. And so that effect has happened even faster, almost preemptively with Theros. So Wizards of the Coast is probably going to be better off discontinuing the collector's editions. Now, the way that Wizards of the Coast works is it takes a while before something is failing. Like something fails, and then it takes a while for them to actually process it, because they're a company that makes products way out, like at least 6 months to a year out, which means that the collector's edition is most likely, well, with Ikoria, it's guaranteed. And it's most likely going to be there with bare minimum, probably Core 2021 as well. I don't see any reason they couldn't do a collector's edition of that, right? I mean, if they think it's a fantastic product, they're willing to try different things. So we'll see it for Ikoria. We'll see it for Core 2020, most likely Zendikar as well. And then from that point on, then it becomes a little more like, okay, if they've realized that this is actually a dumpster fire, they don't want anything to do with it, that'll be the end of the collector's edition experiment. But rest assured, they will continue to do this. We're living in the age of Wizards trying to come up with more expensive products that they can sell to you with either fewer cards or just a more premium price, whatever it is. This is the way of things now, and part of that is because Hasbro is having a hard time financially, and Hasbro needs the money to be kicked up the chain. And currently, Magic is one of the franchises that Hasbro is showcasing around, you know, tooting their little horn about, because Magic is doing half decently, bringing in the numbers. Now, we don't know if that's just because Hasbro overall is taking a beating in the toys market, or if it's literally just fully Magic has been that much of like a raging bull of financial power. But either way, the fact remains is Hasbro has its eye on Wizards, is looking to extract as much money as possible from them since they own them. That's the whole purpose, keep kicking money up the chain. So we will continue to see products like this. Is this the end of the world? No. Does it mean that this collapse of Magic and this is the end of paper Magic like some people were worried about? No, not at all. Remember, EV is not a static sort of thing. The expected value of boxes can fluctuate based on a number of factors, and just the fact that people may be holding off on Theros now may lead to an increased demand in the future because there aren't enough singles to supply demand. That will push the EV up as the card single prices go up. And so, I mean, we're seeing a similar EV increase for other sets right now, like Core 2020. And that's partially because core sets tend to be panned mostly. They don't have as long a life in standard, and they tend to be weaker because they're beginner sets. They don't have the same kind of zazz that your regular expansions like Throne of Eldraine or the upcoming Ikoria or whatever have. So core sets tend to be underappreciated when they come out, but then at a certain point, cards from those sets become relevant and desirable, and boom, you have an increase in EV. So that could happen with Theros. If a bunch of people pan it and a bunch of it doesn't get opened, we will reach some kind of equilibrium. Now, this is not a financial disaster for everybody, but to me, it seems like the ones who were hit hardest by this are the LGSs, and that's rough because there are so few LGSs to begin with, right? We don't have a ton of LGSs in the world. It's not like there's millions and millions of these shops. We're in this tiny little beautiful sphere of the world known as the Magic community, and while yes, there can be some unpleasant people in the Magic community, overall, there's a lot of awesomeness in this, and I like seeing LGSs flourish as opposed to struggle. And I saw what happened with the master sets and what they were doing to LGSs, and this, again, gives me a little bit of concern. But overall, this is not any sort of threat to the game. You don't have to worry that Magic is taking out and this is the end. I know we tend to get into the Chicken Little sky is falling, but it certainly does qualify as financial disaster levels, and it is an interesting point in Magic history. So thanks for coming by. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I am always curious to know what people have to say. I want to give a big shout out to my patrons and channel members for supporting my channel. It means a lot to me, and I will see all of you people very soon.